Okay, guys, alternate ending. Take 43.
With so many movies on the net and TV, it's kinda hard being up and film savvy. Do you catch a show while you're on the go? And how do you know what to keep or what to throw? How do you know what to keep or what to throw? Tune in, tune in, tune in to alternate ending. Tune in, tune in, tune in to alternate ending. Tune in, tune in, tune in to alternate ending. Tune in, tune in, tune in to alternate ending now. Please give a warm welcome to the hosts of Alternate Ending.
Welcome to Alternate Ending, where we're discovering good movies one bad movie at a time. I'm your host, Carrie Jarsinski, and today I'm joined by film critic Tim Brayton, here today thanks to our ever-so-sweet supporter, Andrew Johnson, who also wants to murder us and you as listeners with our first ever top 20 episode.
It is technically two top 10s, which is
That's
different
10
than a
plus
top
10.
20, although not in a way that I could really put into words in terms of the energy levels that I have, which are off the charts high. I'm so
high.
excited.
So high. Yes, we'll be bringing you all as listeners our top 10 and bottom 10 years. Those are years in cinema. So, Tim, welcome to the last day of your life. I'm horrified.
What?
This is the last day of your life. I think this is the end for both of us.
I hope that's not the case. I have at least 3 things to live for.
Oh, that's good. What are they?
Well, I mean, you can see right now, our listeners, of course, cannot, but I have a kitty cat behind my shoulder. So I have 2 kitty cats.
That's 1 and 2. What's the third?
And I have key lime pie.
Oh, fair. Absolutely.
My favorite
fair.
pie. Haven't had one yet in 2023. I should probably think about correcting that fact.
You should. And I'd love to share a slice with you because that would also make my top 3. I do want to warn you in advance, Tim. The reason right now that I sound slightly like Barry Manilow, I don't know if you
sound very husky. Have you picked up cigarettes? Because I think it really turned out well for you. If you did.
know what? I have. I've started smoking regularly, and I have a touch of pneumonia right now.
For pneumonia.
Of just a little pneumonia.
Pneumonia.
Yes. It's the kind that has lacerated holes into my lungs, and
that's the kind that you get.
Great. Yeah. I think, as usual, that I'm impervious to all illness. So when Alice got really sick, I was just like, it's fine. I won't catch this because it's impossible for me to get sick. And then after that bat camping trip, the last one that we had, she had this nasty cough. That's just so bad. Again, I was just like, it's fine. Just drink out of my water bottle. It's fine because I fight everything off. And I haven't fought this one off. It's been the worst sickness I think I've had in my life. It's been so bad.
Well, A, thank you for doing the show.
You're welcome.
B, why are you doing the show?
I mean, I feel okay. It's just that I cannot kick this like rattling, terrible cough that I have that just basically keeps everybody in my house up at all times. And it keeps me up at all times. So yeah, I gotta kick it, but life's gotta carry on for me. I start to get really, really weepy and dark and sad when I'm sick. Like, I'm not a good sick person. So I start to be like, well, guess I mean nothing to the world. Like, I guess I have no value to society if I'm sick.
Certainly the fact that you greeted me by reminding me that I will die and you expect it to happen in the next 24 hours
Things are bleak.
Does speak to your overall mental state.
This is true. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. But I do feel like I'm starting to emerge. I'm starting to come back. We had back to school this week in the house. The girls had to go back to school. You'd think that we'd be seasoned parents by now, but I'm telling you, it's a gigantic cluster every single time.
I mean, eventually your older daughter's going to be to the point where she's just doing it herself because she's going to be in high school.
Oh, don't.
In like
even.
3 years.
Don't even. Just keep dragging me through the mud here. I was coming here for positivity.
And then 4 years after that, she'll be going to college.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, actually, I can't wait. No, I'm just kidding. She's actually been pretty awful lately. I shouldn't say that because she knows that we have a podcast and she told me the other day she listened to one of them. So I'm really worried.
No, I do not need your daughter to be listening to our podcast.
I know. I've already gone in and blocked her from being able to listen, but I do worry that sometime that she will listen and hear that I've said something unkind.
I worry that she'll listen and hear that I've described a gay sex act in minute detail to see if I can gross you out.
Kids these days know about all this stuff. She doesn't. She doesn't, of course. But other kids do. Kids are all up on this stuff. They're way ahead of where we were in 7th grade.
I will find new horizons of the sex act just to make this podcast remain a source of merriment for all.
So speaking of, it's a little bit of a divergence into like my little house on the prairie that I live in, my life. But I want to tell you, I've also had a weird couple days that I thought you would find slightly amusing. It's been super weird.
And this has something to do with gay sex.
It has something to do with relationships. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's relationships.
Okay.
So Abby's pretty closed off about pretty much everything. I'm always like trying to probe for like, is anyone at school of interest? Any guys?
So now I see what. So speaking of probing is what you expected me to say.
There's just all these kinds of crossovers. Yes, just probing her for questions. So she doesn't tell me anything. She's like, I don't like anybody. I'm just not into anybody. I'm like, oh, there's gotta be somebody. Like I had this crush on this guy when I was in 7th grade. And so she doesn't tell me anything, but her best friend, Charlotte, we'll call her Charlotte because her name's Charlotte. She is very open with me about everything. I'm like her mom bestie. So she comes over and she tells me everything, all about her love life, all about the ups, the downs, the drama, all the stuff. So anyway, last night she's over for a sleepover. They're up till midnight. I mean, that's pretty late. I go up there. They're still like watching these videos. And I'm like, what are you watching? And it was like, top 5 ways.
Was it porns?
No. Oh my gosh. What would I do?
I'm curious to know what you would do.
I don't actually know. Because I'm already like, I'm telling you, I'm riding this fine line of like, I don't know what to do. I'm trying to be really hip and cool so they tell me things and they feel like I could, no problem. No big deal. Like that doesn't weird me out. But also like have control. Like I'm like a good mom that's like, I have rules, I have standards, but I want her to like not hide things from me basically. Mm-hmm. So that's the fine line that I'm trying to walk right now. So anyway, she tells me like, oh yeah, Abby's got a crush on this guy at school. And she tells me his name.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I know you were really hoping she was going to turn out to be a lesbian.
I told you that. I know I really was. It was upsetting. There's still a chance. I mean,
there's still a chance. She could be bi. Nothing wrong with being bi. I bi and proud, you know.
In 7th grade, you probably thought you just liked girls, right? Or did you already know?
I didn't really have a framework for it, but I certainly knew that I found the dangly bits. The hills were as interesting to me as the dells, as it were.
Oh, really?
Yes.
How early did that start for you?
Oh, before 7th grade anyway. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't even know. Because I never thought about dingly bells even in 7th grade myself. I just didn't think about anything. I was thinking about like fireflies at that age.
Well, I mean, as we know, you failed a college course because you couldn't diagram a human body or something like that. I forget the details.
That's true. Just miscounted numbers of things. But yes, this is all very true. So anyway, this whole thing snowballs. And I was like, if you want to show me your crush, I'll show you my crush from when I was in 7th grade.
Or you can talk about snowballing.
I did talk
on the subject. Well, you said the whole thing snowballs, and I thought that was a callback.
Oh gosh, yeah. Every time I say that, it just doesn't hit. Every time, it just doesn't catch me. But yes,
that's why I always have to remind you of it.
I know. So it turned into me like morphing back into 7th grade. I went down memory lane. We're pulling out all the stops. I'm pulling out 7th grade crush. I'm pulling out the guy that I went to prom with that drove a car that looked like a cow. I'm pulling out the whole thing. And I want to tell you, I still don't know how I feel about it. I'm like, I feel like I've shared too much. Like I also dated this guy. I realized that like was a thief. He used to like steal leather jackets from Wilson's Leather and give them to
we
people.
All agree that Rob got over that, and you had a huge amount to do with why.
This is actually no. He was a thief. Actually, I've dated lots of thieves.
I mean, Rob, we love you, Rob. And if you want to be able to defend yourself, that you just get back on our show. Rob was a klepto.
Oh,
he was a kleptomaniac in college.
Have we talked about this before? I didn't know you knew this.
Oh, everyone in the dorm knew.
Oh, yeah.
It was just like, there was There was the one guy who didn't shower, and there was the one guy who wore ugly shirts, and there was one guy who was a kleptomaniac, and there was the one guy who we all knew was gay, even though he wouldn't tell us. Like, it's part of the fabric of dorm life.
Yeah. Did he ever steal anything for you?
Not that I'm aware of.
Interesting. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, Rob took this approach. I forgot about it because, again, I was really, really innocent when I first met Rob. And I remember, like, date one, he's like, I just want to let you know. And he just fired off. He's just like, had a bit of a stealing thing, had a bit of this. He listed off like 10 horrifying facts about himself on the first date. But at that point, you're like, well, this isn't going to go anywhere. So, like, sure. I mean, yeah, it's weird, but, like, this isn't going to go anywhere. But that was, like, perfect because then, yeah, it evolved. And by then I had already, like, forgotten about the Best Buy theft and the TV theft and all that stuff. So, yeah, I guess.
So anyway, so you're telling Abby about all of the unsavory, sordid men.
Yeah.
That you allowed to paw at your body with their filthy hands in high school.
There is no pawing. They asked me that too. And then I'm like, how much do I share? I'm like, well, you know what? I was just really into passing notes back and forth to each other. And so I think they think I'm pretty lame, but I do feel like it was a good thing. So if parents are listening out there, I feel like me sharing about some of my missteps in dating life and experiences, I feel like they thought I was pretty cool. I think
they didn't, Carrie.
I felt pretty cool. How many people date a guy?
I'm not saying you're not cool. I'm saying they didn't think you were. I
see. So you're saying it was courtesy compliments.
I'm saying, remember how they quote unquote liked Indiana Jones and the Temple of the Last Crusade?
Yeah.
I think this is what happened.
It was the same. Yeah. Now that you're saying that, it did look like pity laughs, pity smiles, I think, too. But they were pretty cool. So anyway, well, I'll keep you updated. Apparently there's a crush out there. If there's a date that happens, they asked me how early they could date. And I said no earlier than 17. So we'll see. We'll see if that holds. But I digress. Speaking of the best and worst years of our life.
I was going to say, speaking of dates, you know what else is a date? A year.
That was so much better. See, I mean, I've got this pneumonia. This pneumonia has gone straight to my brain.
I know. Did you say pneumonia, by the way?
I have pneumonia. Yes, it's pneumonia of the lungs. It's
that makes it sound so cute.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to start going.
I still can't get over, like, I assume your doctor, like, doesn't want you to be podcasting right now.
I didn't go to the doctor. Gosh.
Well, then you don't know if you have pneumonia.
No, I do.
You might just have a bad sniffles.
Well, no, Alice had pneumonia. So, and I have the same thing. It's definitely the same symptoms.
You should go to a hospital.
Do I need to?
It's pneumonia.
I know, but doesn't it just pass on its own?
No, maybe.
Oh, really?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't want to Google it and find out, because what if they say I have to go to the doctor?
I mean, people die from it.
Do they?
It's what kills old people.
Well, I'm not that old. I do feel.
You're not that young.
We're coming in with the knives
you're not,
out.
You're not dies of pneumonia.
The knives are out. I do feel I have had thoughts while having this that I was like, oh, I see why people die, because I kind of want to. It's been bad.
Oh.
But again, I feel like I'm on the upswing right now, minus this voice situation. So sit back and enjoy this new voice. So
I do. It's like I'm podcasting with Kathleen Turner. I'm very excited.
It is absolutely true. So nevertheless, again, like we said, we are here today with our top 10, bottom 10 years in cinema. And Tim, I'm going to throw something out to you because I got some criteria and I got some rules, and I want to bounce them off you a little bit because this cannot be a 12-hour episode. And so in doing that,
it can.
It can.
I'll bet if I keep interrupting you in the middle of sentences to just say random things like that,
that it will.
I'll bet we can at least get it up to 2.
Okay. All right. Well, I would like it to be 1 hour. So
it won't be 1 hour.
It could be. It could be our first 1 hour episode. You never know. But here's what I'm thinking. We gotta tackle some of this fast. So here's what I'm thinking. How do we conquer the lists in a somewhat quick fashion? So I'm thinking for the first 5 years, the 6 through 10 on both the top and bottom, you can only say the year and then you get 5 words or less to defend yourself. For example, so if I might say the worst year, I would say 1971, what is even the French Connection? And then it's just right to you.
That is 6 words, Carrie.
No, I said, what even?
What?
What even is the French Connection?
That's the same 6 words in a different order.
No, but it's what even is one word. It's sort of like it's a slang that I've come up with.
I would have started by taking out the article from the French Connection for the record.
Oh, that's better. Yeah, that's better.
How about we say one sentence?
One sentence.
And it has to be a simple diagrammable sentence with no semicolons.
Okay. I don't want any semicolons or no dashes, because you know what? I've started using dashes just incorrectly all the time to connect sentences.
Everyone who reads the site knows this. I absolutely use dashes where you're supposed to use parentheses. I think it's an interesting flourish, but I know it's wrong.
I agree too. I love them. See, we have so much in common. Or I would also like you to say 1942, Casablanca is a stinker. Like things like that. But you can now we'll elaborate. It could be a sentence. And this is going to be very rapid fire. So just sort of a game of ping pong. I go, you go, I go. That kind of thing.
I get it. So we're going to do 10, 9, 8, 7. So we're going to go back and forth. It's not, I do 5 and you do 5. We're going to go back and forth.
Yes. Like ping pong. That's what happens
and
in ping pong.
Are we going to start with bad or good?
I think start with good, right?
Okay.
Or were you going to say bad?
I was going to say bad, but you're the host. If you're the sick one, I want to do whatever facilitates you having the most comfort.
All right. I want to start with the bottom.
Okay. I like brain fried. I had too many directions to go with it.
I know.
You gave me too many places, Carrie.
I did. Okay. All right. We're going with the good then. I don't want to fry you.
No, it's okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, do you understand why? I just need to clarify.
I do.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure.
I don't really, but yes.
Bottom is the euphemism for the receiving partner in penetrative sex.
What does that have to do with your bottom 5?
Because you said let's start with the bottom. And I was going to try to make some joke about, I always try to, but like just the number of possible like jokes just overwhelmed me and I short circuited.
I see. You know what? You just go with whatever it's going to go with. Okay. All right. We're going to start with the bottom. All right.
I'm going to be good boy.
You be good because my kids are listening. All right, Tim, to you, number 10. Bottom 5, 10. Bottom 10.
Number 10, bottom 5. I'm going to start with 1985. Very low point for American cinema in general, including some terrible, terrible horror movies such as Friday the 13th, A New Beginning.
You ass. Just kidding. Oh, wait. Are we allowed to respond? No, we're not allowed to respond.
No responses. That's for the top 5s.
Okay. Shoot. All right. Sorry. I'm like hitting things now. I'm like already flustered.
I get what your number 1 year is going to be.
Oh my gosh, I'm sweating. All right, number 5 for me, 2005, because Reddit said it was the worst ever, and I needed one more.
Okay, I don't like 2005 either. It was on my contenders list.
So does Reddit, and I don't go to Reddit, and I was like, you know what? Somebody like Tim would go to Reddit, and so I believe you.
I don't go to Reddit, but people like me might.
People like you that watch movies would go to Reddit, and that's why I did.
I mean, I feel like people like me still go to MySpace.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. I actually went there the other day, but we don't have time to talk about that.
We sure don't.
So back to you.
Number 9, 2018. Just an overall sort of sloppy year, way too many crummy IP cash-ins, including one of my all-time least favorite franchise movies, the inexplicably bad Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald.
Ooh, all right. 2017, I'm going to throw it back to you. Baywatch, but only had The Rock in it.
That's sure did.
And The Book of Henry, which was kind of good. But not
Book of Henry is kind of not even a slight bit good.
And 50 Shades Darker.
Continuing to defend that.
I know. So 2017. All right.
Up to our number 8s.
Top 8.
2002. Just a sort of overall junk year. Not much going on. No particularly great films. Worst film of the year, Halloween Resurrection.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. I just keep frantically scanning my list when you say these to see if the year is on my top 10.
We'll take it as it comes.
Take it as it comes. All right. Coming in at number 8 for me, 2011. All right. And I'm going to give you a little bit of Jack and Jill. More like Jack and Pill.
Off.
Jack and Pill, I was going to say. Yeah.
I like jacking off. Thank you very much.
So much better. Thank you for helping me there.
2011 just barely missed my best list.
Excellent. Excellent. I'd love to know why, but not now. Give me your number 7.
Number 7, Curveball. Not a film I expected to be bad, but when I was looking at it, I was like, holy shit, there's a lot of bad movies in the year of our Lord, 1977. Yeah, there was Star Wars. Also, just a whole lot of like nobody in Hollywood knows how to make a movie anymore. And also somehow 3 different Black Emmanuel movies came out that year, including the absolutely unwatchable Emmanuel Around the World.
Ooh, all right. Only slightly worse than that was 2015, which is coming in at my number 7. And I would say most depressing year in film that I ever saw. And I don't like to see babies get eaten. So that's why I have this on my list.
What in Christ's name are you talking about?
Well, this is the year of the witch and the year of the lobster. 2 of the worst movies.
Babies don't get eaten in The Lobster.
No, in The Witch. The Witch.
Okay.
And then that dog gets kicked in The Lobster, and I've never let it go.
True.
I've like never liked Colin Farrell or Firth or whatever his name is ever since. The worst.
All right. I'm gonna wrap up my 6 through 10 worst years of all time with 1989, the grand finale to a just shit decade of movies. 1989 has the unique distinction of having an entry from all of the very
what was it
inconsistent.
That you just said?
What
year did you just say?
1989. 1989, the year that produced one of the all-time worst Nightmare on Elm Streets, one of the all-time worst Friday the 13th, and one of the all-time worst Halloweens.
I don't have anything to say to you. I gotta go. Okay. I'm having a hard time recovering from that one. Hang on. I've got to mute myself to panic. Okay. So, all right. I'm a little flustered. Hang on. I forgot where I'm at. Okay.
I love that I managed to get your 2 top years on my bottom 5.
I didn't say that. All right. Coming in at my number 6 is 2019, which brought us the Masturbating Mermaid, the worst animated classic movie of all time, the worst Will Smith movie of all time, and a bear that lights a house on fire. And Cats. It also brought us Cats. That's 2019.
Cats is a masterpiece, though, so Cats is an argument against.
I hard disagree, just like I do about The Lighthouse, Midsommar, Gemini Man, Dumbo, a garbage year for cinema, 2019.
Okay.
And that's my number 6.
I'm impressed that your bottom list is much more recent than mine, because I expected that to be my bias, was that I generally downgraded more recent years and overrated further distant years.
I also tried to do something. So I built out my list, and then I was like, gosh, I got to get a better spread of the years here. So then I went around and I was like, okay.
So you have 4 years from an 8-year span.
It didn't go well. I'm saying I tried to. These lists took me like hours to make. I was like scouring movies that I hate to be like, what year was this? But it couldn't just be that one movie, because here's the other thing. The worst thing was I'd be like, okay, I've got a total garbage movie, a movie that's the worst. I hate it so much. It's got to be the worst in history. And then it would have like a counterbalance to it. So as an example, the movie Society from 1989. I was like, shit, can't use Society anymore. So I was like, So it was really, really hard, because it seemed like the worst movies also had some of the best years.
Yeah. Well, we didn't actually discuss how we got these lists put together. Do we want to do that before we go into our 6 through 10 best years?
I do. How did you go about it?
Well, sort of building off what you just said, every single year, going back to the dawn of cinema, every single year had at least one really great movie, and it has at least one real stinky movie. And you just cannot find an exception to that. So you kind of can't go with like, what are the worst movies or what are the best movies? Because there's always going to be the counterweight. So I was kind of looking for what are the years that have like a story, right? Like the years that in some way something happened that year that was like of note and sort of furthered the medium in some way. But also just like, what are the years where the middle tier films, right? Like not the best films, not the worst films, but maybe the better than average films were a lot better than average, or some years the better than average films just weren't that many of them. And also, do I think the worst films were worse than the best films were good?
Yeah. I think that's a really good way to think about it. I like that.
So that's kind of how I did it. And that got me, I think a pretty decent spread. It's definitely a me list, and people will hear that when we get there. But for me, it was just a matter of like, how much do I love the movies that I love, and how much do I hate the movies that I hate, and which one sort of makes my heart pump faster.
Yeah. Well, and I did the same where it's like I tried to target, again, a couple movies where I'm like, oh, this is just a standout movie that I hate so much, like so deeply, someone that's so bad. And then, like you said, I went and I'm like, was there anything good this year? And if it wasn't super spiky, like if it wasn't like, oh my gosh, my favorite movie of all time, like, like if it didn't really have that extra weight to it, I kind of just held it back. But I'm telling you, I thought this list build was going to be not fast, but faster than it was.
Sure.
This was so many hours. I was like, oh, it's kind of those ones you can phone in. Like I could pick a couple movies, like I'll pick my favorite 10, my worst 10, and just apply the years. But once you go down the rabbit hole of
Yep.
what else was this year, and then you have to start to weight it, because even in some of the years, this is where I struggled, especially on my favorites list, was, let's say one's just like a standout, favorite movie or a movie I love, but the 1 through 6 other movies that came out that year are like better than the 2 through 6 movies that came out that year are better than the 2 through 6 that came out in a movie that's higher. So then it kind of like forced me to like shift things around on the overall spread of the year, if that makes sense.
You almost kind of have to compare, like, what are your 11 through 20 out of every year?
Yeah.
More than what are your 1 through 3 is almost sort of how you have to do it.
Yeah. Which again led to many hours of scouring IMDb and lists and my lists and like convening all of my lists together of movies I hate and love and all of that. And so, yeah, this was a brutal one, Andrew. So thank you for that. All right, well then let's jump in now. Let's go to our bottom. Our 1 through 5
our
of our
6
bottom.
through 10 best years of all time.
Oh, you want to do that? Or do you want to?
Is that not how you want to do it?
We can.
I thought that's what you wanted to do.
We could. Or we could jump to just finish out our bottom.
You wanted to finish the bottoms, then take a break, then go to our tops?
Let's do that.
All right. That sounds good.
All right. I'm really, really curious if there's any overlap here. So you give me
Who's to say? You
give me your number 5 bottom year of all time.
Well, I want to make one further comment before I start, which is to say I exempted a year.
Okay.
I thought it would be fair. The year 2020, there was a pandemic. The movies all got canceled. The movies that did get canceled kind of sucked, but it seems unsporting to me to say, well, there weren't movies. That makes it the worst year. So I decided, even though I think objectively a case can be made, and if you have the year, I will certainly not find fault, I couldn't put 2020 on my list. So I'm just going to say that before I get started.
Okay. All right.
And I'm now going to go to my number 5, my actual number 5. And we can go into a little bit more detail now, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. So my number 5 is a year that's from maybe the first just like overall bad decade in the history of the Hollywood movie specifically. And I was trying to do a global approach, but Hollywood makes so many movies. They I think disproportionately weight any given year because economically and commercially and just in terms of volume, that's where most movies are. And the 60s were a really, really, really bad decade for American film. The American film industry was kind of like imploding on itself. And I had to pick, well, what is the year that I think just like the 60s bottomed out? And maybe you have to sort of go to tiebreakers. You look at other countries, see what they had. Where are the years where there just wasn't anything really good? Because the counterbalance is that the 60s were a really, really good decade for Europe. So what I landed on ultimately was the final year of the decade, 1969. Basically, old Hollywood was just burned up and had nothing left. But the new Hollywood that sort of gives us The Godfather and American Graffiti and things like that wasn't really here yet. Like it was sort of getting revved up, but it wasn't there. So you really just have this kind of like trough of like the worst of everything. And it's kind of typified, I think, by just this endless list of these huge, expensive, awful musicals. Films like Hello, Dolly, Paint Your Wagon, a especially precious film to me in terms of how bad I think it is. Can Hieronymus Merkin ever forget Mercy Hump and find true happiness? It's just a dismal year. You know, there's just so much sludgy excess, and all of the like hit movies are still kind of just dumb and edgy for the sake of it. Not a lot going on here, so that's my number 5, my 5th worst year of all time.
Is 1969.
1969.
Didn't make my list, and I didn't love those musicals either. So, but it sounds like a doozy. Is there anything redeeming from that year, though? Would you say?
Oh, again, every single year has a great film, and 1969 actually has one of my favorite films. It has the movie Z, a really terrific political thriller from Greece. And there are other good films as well. I mean, I'm not going to say that's the only good film, but like, yeah, every single year is going to have at least one masterpiece in it. Z is certainly a masterpiece from 1969.
Okay. All righty. Well, I'm going to bring you to another niner. You're going to catch a niner in here. Name that movie.
I don't have any idea what you're saying.
Tommy Boy? Have you not seen Tommy Boy?
I saw Tommy Boy for the last time like 22 years ago.
Did I catch a niner in there? All right. This one comes from 2009. And that is the year of The Human Centipede. It also brought us a movie that's slightly worse, The Blind Side. And I could not find another movie from 2009 that I actually felt was redeeming. So and The Blind Side's continued to get worse. Apparently, like it's making the news that it's like even worse than we thought it was then. Like we thought it was bad then, but now,
I mean, the filmmakers didn't know the story, so we can't blame the movie for that. But no, 2009, terrible year. I had this one on my like extended list.
Oh, did you?
I didn't put it down, but I definitely agree with you.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything like overwhelmingly redeeming about 2009, so it made my number 5.
I can definitely throw out a few things that to me give it a pretty huge redemption. Not necessarily films that you would love, so I can't necessarily claim that. But like, I'm never going to say the year that produced Avatar didn't give me something I loved. It was a big old cinematic 3D spectacular event. Gave us the Pixar film Up.
Oh no! I just realized I made a mistake.
You meant 2008, didn't you?
No, I meant 2009. But
you meant 2009.
I have it on both lists. I just realized.
Well, there you go. That's fine. It's the duality of man, Carrie.
I was like, wait, I love those movies. What are you talking about? And I'm like, oh no. Yeah. Whoopsies.
Whoopsie doodle.
Whoopsie doodle. Little bit of a spoiler alert.
I would definitely ratchet down the hyperbole about how you couldn't find anything redeeming the year, though.
I would say 2008 to 9. I think A Human Centipede was early on in that year. Let's just move on.
Let's just move on.
Go to your number 4.
My number 4, that brings us to the most desolate of all decades. I think the one decade, because again, as I was saying, the trick is like the 60s were bad in the US, but they were great in Europe. Some decades are bad, some places, and good other places. The decade that I think is just across the board bad is the 80s, and I knew that in advance. So I was like, I'll bet I have a bunch of films of years from the 80s here, and I do. I had 1985 and 1989 already. I will now add to that with the year 1983, which isn't necessarily a film where the bads are excruciatingly bad, but what's really, I think, striking about 1983, the good films are just not very good. Like, I have for a long time felt that 1983 had probably the overall worst slate of Oscar nominations. And I should say, I weighted that. Mm-hmm. Like, I looked at Oscars, I looked at Cannes, I looked at, all the big festivals, because the films that win awards, that's part of the year's narrative, right? So like, if the filmmakers think these are the films that are like worthy of attention this year and they're bad, well, then, that's going to be something I wait. And 1983 had just a completely lousy Oscars.
What was the Oscar winner that year?
So the best picture went to Terms of Endearment that year.
Okay.
The other nominees were Tender Mercies, The Big Chill, The Dresser, and The Right Stuff, which The Right Stuff is my favorite movie of that year. And I think it's pretty damn good, but it's like, it's not a great film to be your favorite film of the year.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at with 1983. The lows aren't necessarily lower than the rest of the 80s, but the highs are just not there at all. So it's really easy to focus more on the lows, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, it's the year of my birth. So It makes
Oh, I
sense.
thought you were born 1984.
No.
I might have bumped it up to number one if I'd known that.
I know you would have. That's why I didn't tell you. Yeah, no, that does feel fair though. I think that feels fair. It seems like a weird Oscar winner actually, or Best Picture winner. Just even you saying that, but not quite as weird as the year of 2016, which brought us movies like The Girl on the Train, Paprika, and the movie Tickled, where people just filmed an entire movie of them tickling each other for the whole movie. And it was very bad.
Sounds pretty hot.
And it's my worst fear. I hate being tickled. I actually don't even really like being touched in more than like 4 places. And it was my worst nightmare. So I hated it. All of these movies weren't good. And again, could not find anything else redeeming. Doing a quick check to make sure that it's not on my top 10 years in cinema as well. And it is not. So
Good.
Tell me why I'm wrong. Anything good from 2016 that I missed?
I know you're not a musicals person, so I can't say La La Land, which would be sort of the first one that leaps to my mind. I was okay with 2016. I didn't think it was a particularly huge standout year, but I didn't think it was certainly a particularly awful year. I'm trying to remember what my own top 10 was that year, and I'm drawing a blank. But just kind of a middle of the road year.
Middle
for me,
of the road, yeah. Nothing that jumped off the page. Kind of similar to you. Like again, no spikes either way, but there were some real zingers of things that I thought were no good.
Sure.
All right, take it to your number 3.
I am now going to arrive at the place that I kind of expected to be at for the whole of my list, which is just now, because my number 3 is 2022. It is the year now completed. Just our most recent full year. I will say I also exempted 2023 because it's not done. So let's not bury it before it's due to be buried. But 2022 is certainly a year where at the very, very end of the year, like literally starting in December, I finally started seeing movies that were like, oh, that's actually good. That's actually great, even in some cases. But it felt like for those first 11 months of the year, I was just like crawling through mud and broken glass, trying to find absolutely any movies that I got excited by. And we were still, even in 2023, we're still reeling from like the pandemic's disruption to film production. 2022 was, of course, more so. So that's a big part of it. They're just kind of parceling out this like weird leftover junk of movies. But it certainly was, there are highlights. Top Gun Maverick leaps to mind as one, big old summer
the Banshees
fun
of Inisherin, didn't you?
Was that?
Didn't you love the Banshees of Inisherin?
Well, that's the thing. Like, that's a movie that I think is good, but if that's in my top 20, and it was, that's not saying great things. Like, if I have to go as far down as like the Banshees of Inisherin.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think to your point,
it's like the top 5 last year was just out of this world great, I thought. But once you get again to that like 11 through 20, you're kind of starting to string.
Yeah, it was the year of Pinocchio.
And it's just a whole lot of mediocre shit.
And neither of us loved Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is the one that took all of those awards. And I didn't even make it through it. I watched it on a plane and I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah, I possibly actually am waiting 2022 down for that exact specific movie, which I find that movie a big bummer. I don't like it. I don't like that it's popular.
I know.
So
I think it became a trend. Like everyone's like, oh, we got to say that we like this. It's a little bit, and dare I say a little Barbie, like, or it was like, oh, I gotta I know I'm gonna get like Rotten Tomatoes for that, but
I will frankly say I think the love for Everything Everywhere is a bit more organic than the love for Barbie, but I appreciate the sentiment, and I come from the same place, frankly.
I know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand it. Other people do. Maybe there's people that are more into film than us. I don't know. I don't know
sure that there's a lot of people more into film than me.
I don't know. You haven't reviewed a movie in a month, so it's hard to say.
That's true. I have not. Thank you for saying that.
That was for some sort of zing that you gave me earlier. I can't remember what it was anymore. Because
the one that said you're old?
Yes. That was for the old comment. That's what that
was.
You're
welcome.
So I'm going to move into my number 3, which brings us to my oldest year. And it was the first year that popped into my mind. I was hoping and praying that I would not find another good movie in this year, and I didn't, because it does carry one of my least favorite movies of all time. This is the ever-loving, poop in a jar, turn it to gold classic, The Holy Mountain, which still stands as one of my least favorite experiences of my life. So this brings us to 1973. And I looked and I'm like, is there anything else? It had
1973 is a great year. I hate to break it to you.
I don't think so. So Jesus Christ Superstar. Did you love that? No.
No.
Yeah, that's it. That's the only
American
other thing that
Graffiti.
came
Do
out.
I love that? Yes.
No one loves that movie. What else? Give me another one.
The Exorcist. F for Fake.
No one loves that.
God,
Exorcist.
I think Cries and Whispers was technically 72, so I can't call Cries and Whispers. Je tu il L? That's 74.
You're just
I don't know. So there's a good
See?
year. 73 is a good. Paper Moon 73.
no one loves Paper Moon. No one even knows Paper Moon. You're the only
And
one
the
that's
world
seen
loves Paper Moon.
No.
You would love Paper Moon if you ever saw it.
If I
you
saw
would
it,
you would want to apologize to it for saying that nobody loves it.
maybe, but you know what? I haven't seen it because no one's told me to see it, and it must not be that good.
I just did.
Well, I know. Maybe I would change this if you had told me sooner. But for right now,
Seriously though, you would actually love Paper Moon.
what's about?
It's about a con artist and his 10-year-old daughter, who's also a con artist, and they're traveling around in the Depression, conning people, and it's adorable.
Oh,
And it's Ryan and Tatum O'Neal, an actual father and daughter, playing the con artist and his daughter.
that sounds a little cute. Well,
It's pretty cute.
for right now, I'm holding my ground until I see it. But 1973, a real bummer. So that is my number 3. I'm going to pass it to you at number 2.
Okay, I'm going to be so boring. I'm going
Okay.
to be so boring, and I apologize, but you got to be honest to yourself. And I'm just gonna ratchet the calendar back by 12 months with 2021,
Okay.
which again, pandemic just killed the movies, and I exempted 2020, but I did not exempt any of the other years affected by the pandemic. And on a head-to-head matchup, I think the films from 2021 were just worse because there was still, for the first chunk of the year, theaters weren't really back on their feet, so they were being even cagier about what films were getting released. So there's just a lot of nonsense came out in that year. Very little that was actively good. 2021 is a year where I'd have a really hard time, I think, picking out what were the great films, like the absolute no two ways about it, capital G great films. And I could certainly name a ton of films that I thought were just really shitty.
Yeah.
Including a particularly bad year at the Oscars, I thought.
It's our first matchup. That's my number 1 bottom year of all time. I hated 2021. This brought us The Green Knight. Like, that movie was just ridiculous. I just did not like that movie in any way. This movie brought us movies like Ma, The Matrix Resurrection, which made no sense to me. What else did it have? It had that's it.
Had
Plan
I'm
B.
just trying to even. I've got my list in front of me.
It was a bunch of small movies.
So my least favorite film of the year, for the record, was Me, You, Madness, which was that terrible film by Louise Linton, who was the wife of some Trump appointee.
Oh, okay.
So she's making this awful movie about how rich people are cool, but they're also serial killers. I don't even fucking know what it was. Really, really mediocre Pixar film that year, Luca, which not the worst film of the year by any stretch of the imagination, but any year with a mediocre Pixar film makes me sad.
Wasn't this the year that Coda won Best Picture?
That was the year Coda won Best Picture.
And we argued about this in the past because I do think that it is a decent movie, but it is not an Oscar-winning movie.
It is not the
stretch.
best film of any year, and any year where it might even possibly be the best year is a year where there's something went wrong.
Yeah, this was Raya and the Last Dragon. I also didn't love that. You thought it was prettier. You thought it was pretty, but I was like,
it's pretty, but it's pretty boring.
Pretty boring. I don't even remember anything that happened in it.
Dear Evan Hansen was that year, just an absolute insane shit show of a movie.
That was the worst. Yeah, Quiet Place too. I mean, there's a couple of them that are all sequels that were fine, but absolutely agree that this is the most bored year in film that I think I ever had. I was just
it was loud. Oh, that was the year Space Jam 2 came out. If I'm not counting Me, You, Madness, because it basically didn't exist. Space Jam 2 was my least favorite film.
Oh, I take it back. Now it's the best year. Best year in film history. Oh, yes. I couldn't agree more. So this was your number 2 though.
That was my number 2.
You got a worse year.
That was my number 2.
You got a worse year. So that's my number 1. At number 2 for me, I have a really bad year. And this one, along with Holy Mountain, first year, this is the first year I met you. This is the first actually maybe time I
so it
met
must
you.
have been a bad year.
This was the worst year of my life, the year that we met. No, it didn't come out the year we met, but the first time I saw this movie was, I think, the first time we met. And it was one of the worst experiences of my life. And I didn't know what was going on. And you guys were all laughing and making jokes about things that were meta and weird and funny because it was so bad. It was good. And I was like, this is just really, really bad.
So it was when we introduced you to Bad Movie Night and you didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
Is what I'm hearing.
I was
Okay,
like,
cool.
these movies are really bad. Like, these are really, really bad. And this was a movie that came out in the year 2000. And this is John Travolta playing a space alien in Battlefield Earth. This also brought us Requiem for a Dream, which Rob has subsequently said that, like, if I were to ever see that, it would be the worst day of my life, that I could never watch it. I could not find in the year 2000 anything else redeeming, and it carried one of the worst movies I've ever seen and my first meeting with you all in one.
Oh, well, you and I didn't meet in the year 2000. We didn't meet until like
But
2007.
seeing Battlefield Earth, which came from the year 2000.
Sure.
So
2000 is an interesting case for me. I was going to do this at the start of our 10 best, but I'll do it now. 2000, I feel like I have to give an honorable mention to as being the only year that I shortlisted for both best and worst.
okay.
So I agree with you. Just a ton of absolute awful
Stinkers.
garbage that year. But on the reverse side, this is the year of In the Mood for Love and Yee Yee. I think Yee Yee was 2000. Yee Yee might have been 2001. But like, no, Yee Yee was 2000. So like two of my absolute favorite films of the century both came out that year. So I can't not acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, real mixed batch of a year. Some great stuff. Some very, very bad stuff.
I still have it on my short list of regrets that I didn't love In the Mood for Love more. And I think it was me. I think it was a me problem. I think
I agree. Because
Yeah.
the movie's perfect. So if you didn't love it, it's on you.
I think, I must have been in a grumpy mood or something.
You were not in the mood for love.
I was not in the mood. Maybe Rob annoyed me earlier that day. Maybe I wasn't feeling romantic. Maybe, I don't know what was happening. Maybe I was just jealous of how beautiful these people were because I was eating Fritos and bean dip that night or something like that. I'm not sure. But I'm going to give that one a rewatch because I probably will like it.
I want to. Were you going to say something?
No.
Well, I want to. While we're still talking 2000, I don't want to just chip in. Maybe the single film that makes me angriest that it exists and that I've seen it multiple times. The Ron Howard How the Grinch Stole Christmas came out that year.
Is that the?
That's the Jim Carrey Grinch.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Movie just puts me in the absolute foulest possible mood. So I've got to give it some credit there as well. Like I said, it was weird because it was on both my top and my bottom short list. So I was like, well, it can't really go on either. Because unlike some people, I didn't think I was cool enough to have the same film on both of my lists.
I didn't think I was either, but here we are. So, nevertheless, we made it through. And Tim, we are under an hour at our first half.
We haven't done my number one yet.
But do we need to? No, I'm just joking. Of course. Tell us your number one. Please
My
let
number
it not
one.
be on my list.
Bit of a sentimental pick.
Oh, okay.
It's just sort of like the watchword for the year that movies fucked up and had a stroke and started being shitty. And that is the year 1929, which was also the year that basically American cinema switched to 100% sound. And eventually they'd get good at it. And, 80 years later, 90 years later, however many years later it is, I don't even know. I can't do math. We know how to do sound, right? Like you put the camera and you have your actors talk and they talk and you hear the sound out of the picture. It's easy stuff. In 1929, it wasn't easy. And they came up with some just absurdly bad ways to try and make it happen. And this is actually going on in 1928 as well. But 1928 has some like compensating factors. The crop of 1929, there's like 3 good movies in the entire year because the non-US marketplaces were still kind of like finding their footing. The US, meanwhile, is just basically pitching shit out. So there's very few good movies in 1929. Very few like indescribably bad movies, but so many movies where it's just like the most incredibly boring. Everyone's sitting at a table and they're like conspicuously leaning into a potted plant. And that's where the microphone was been hitted. Just junk, just such embarrassing amateur junk that year.
But was it good? Like, were there some really peak years right before that?
There were, and
Okay.
I'll not be talking about those years.
See, that's weird. Like, then that's weird to me. Like, I could see if it's like, hey, we're still just trying to kind of figure all this out.
Well, that's the thing. They had to start from scratch because they knew how to make silent movies, and now they had to learn how to make talkies, and they just couldn't get there.
But then you kind of give them
Not
a little
initially.
bit of a pass, because then you're like, oh, if it's just that the way to make a movie was more challenging and they had to figure it out, like, you got to give a little breathing room, don't you?
You got to give them a little breathing room, but then you actually sit down and you watch the movies,
and then they're bad.
like you sit your ass down in front of the Hollywood Review of 1929, and you tell me if I need to give that movie a pass.
I mean, I'm sure there's lots of other movies in that decade before and after that I would also not give a pass that you would.
Right.
So that are probably on your list.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Nevertheless,
We'll
so what was that year? Was it 29?
1929. Again, good years, good movies that year. Man with a Movie Camera comes out in the Soviet Union. One of the absolute best movies ever made. So again, no year is irredeemable, but this one's close.
It's close. Okay. So that's number 1. All right. Well, interesting picks for your bottom. I'm even more excited to talk about your top. Hee hee.
Hey, I mean, I can call them up.
But
Well, I actually am the top, so that would be.
I would have guessed that. But nevertheless, before we head to our break, you might be wondering about ways to support the show. You can join Patreon, get early access to exclusive content, make us watch a movie, and more from our Patreon site, just like Josh Lawrence, who snagged him our Oscar award level. It's the biggie. It's the doozy of all awards, giving him access to pretty much everything that we offer on Patreon. So, Josh, thank you so much, and thank you for supporting the show. Also want to thank our Patreons who are celebrating their anniversaries with us this month. That is Lisa Ellis, Richard Page, Adam Strange, Robert Niven, Andrew Johnson. You're welcome for this episode. Nathan Morrow, John Taylor, and Benjamin Ross Johnson. Thank you all so much for your support. We also want to thank all of our listeners who support the show and make their purchases through our Amazon banner. Doing it is easy. Go to our website, alternateending.com, click on our Amazon banner, and seamlessly go about your purchases. All proceeds go to making our show better. Tim, there's some things that are out there. Not something super weird. No nipple tassels. I haven't found any more giant buckets of lube, but somebody is out there getting organized. They're out there putting labels on lots of things. Plastic storage bin labels. Lots of them. Hundreds of them.
Okay. And very important to keep your house tidy that way.
It is. I wish you had called me because I just found them. I'm doing a purge. I'm doing a house purge right now, and I found a bunch of them from the last time I was planning on getting organized that I never used, and I'm now not planning because I'm more realistic on using them. So I would have given them to you. But nevertheless, thank you for your purchase. Also, someone picked up in books and textbooks, Dead Man's Walk. You read that?
I have not.
You should. Sounds
Dead men can't walk though because they're dead.
unless
I'm
you're
confused.
your Weekend at Bernie's guy. I have a feeling it is maybe a death row. Do you think it's maybe a death row book?
That would be my assumption.
That I would too. I don't think I'd be into that kind of book. I think those are the kinds of things that I try to pretend don't happen in real life. I don't know if you do that too.
I do not pretend that things don't happen in real life.
You don't?
tragically.
You don't like compartmentalize and just say like, oh,
I relish the knowledge that humanity is wicked and one day everyone will be dead. and they'll probably deserve it.
You know, that is sad and awful. And I know you definitely don't do that, but sometimes I have trouble sleeping at night now that I'm getting old and sad. And so now sometimes when I get like where I'm like, oh, I can't fall asleep at night because I'm thinking about all of the world's atrocities, I'll start to be like, okay, if I like right now, like I'll do like 1 second, I'm like, oop, I bet nothing bad happened that second. Like I'll be like, oh, nothing bad happened, I bet, for that 1 second. Like no animal.
Given the number of people alive on this planet, someone dies every second.
Do you think so?
I guarantee it. I think so.
I bet maybe it's like, oh, in this 1 second.
I think someone just died in that last second.
You think
And
last second?
possibly they died in pain. Possibly they died of pneumonia.
I told you not to make me laugh.
They drowned in their own lung juice, Carrie.
I'm gonna vote. You're gonna hear me putting another cough drop in because you're making me laugh, and my hole in my lung is starting to wheeze. So, that's sad. I'm starting to feel sad even just thinking about it. You're probably right. Somebody probably did just die of pneumonia. Probably. Oh, well. Hopefully that person bought a song and a prayer, 30 devotions inspiring favorite songs, or your death. That's It's very sad.
That's right. Alternate ending. We hope that you're buying products while you sit by your loved one's deathbeds.
Thank you for that. Somebody is also out there getting lots of books. Playing to Lose, How a Jehovah's Witness Became a Submissive BDSM Model? Wait, hang on. Playing to Lose, How a Jehovah's Witness Became a What is that? What am I reading right now?
Here's the problem with it, is that anything I could say would be less of a sex joke than the actual title of the book.
I did not... Wait, so BDSM.
BDSM is bondage, domination, and sadomasochism. It's like people who are into
Tying up.
sex and pain. Tying up, yes.
Okay.
Candle wax, that sort of
And
thing.
the submissive is the person that you pour the wax on.
Yes, that's correct.
That's you. You're the wax wearer. Or are you the wax pourer?
I have the candle wax.
You
with
pour
me.
the wax.
Yes.
Is this
We
your
don't do that, to be clear. I don't think that sounds very fun.
I don't think that sounds fun either. Gosh. Man,
Like I made some candles last week, and I got a little wax on me, and it hurts. And I don't want to get that on my delicate nether regions.
I just don't think I'm into pain. I don't think so. I don't know. But I hope you are. If you bought this book, I hope you're into pain.
Or maybe you're into Jehovah's Witnesses. Let's not judge.
But why is it just Jehovah's Witnesses? How would Jehovah's Witnesses?
I think it's a specific Jehovah's Witness whose life journey became a BDSM model.
Why are we writing a book about that? I mean, I'm sure there's lots of Jehovah's Witnesses that are BDSM models. I mean,
I bet there's not.
You don't think so? A secret?
I bet, well, there's at least one.
There's at least one. This person in this book. I hope you enjoy this book. Let us know how you enjoy it. And thank you all again for supporting us. When we get back, our top 5 best and worst years in cinema history. Welcome back. If you're still with us after that Amazon read, we're here talking about our top years in movie cinema history.
I actually thought that our whole pre-roll thing was being recorded for the show, so I was in character. So now I feel like an idiot.
Maybe it was.
I don't know.
That'll
be Rob's decision in the editing room.
We'll find out later. Nevertheless, we've got 10 more movies to get through, and we're going to do it the same way. Just pinging and ponging, okay? We're going to go through, and we're going to go through our first 10 through 6 as quickly as we can. No arguing, no fighting, no justifying. Just tell it how it is. So, Tim, give me your number 10 best years in cinema.
My 10th best year in the history of cinema, late change, because I was discussing a different year, and my friend was like, what about this year? And I was like, actually, you're right. No particular cool narrative, just a whole bunch of really, really good movies came out in the year 1993.
Yeah, they did. That's my number 2 year.
Well, don't give me your number 2 yet. We'll discuss it when we get to it.
Sorry. I love 1993. Tell me why. Tell me. Oh yeah, you're not allowed to tell me.
We're ping ponging, and you're like, ooh, let's grab the ball. Let's have a conversation. No, we're ping ponging. We're going to your number 10, Carrie.
I just am so excited that we matched. I grabbed the ball in the air right now, and I want to talk about it, but we won't. Okay, number 10 for me. Great year, but not great enough for my top 5. But loved it. Means so much to me. 2001. It is the year of Sam Gamgee. All right, to you.
To me, big year for international art cinema, including the debut of the absolute all-time masterpiece, Seven Samurai. Great year domestically as well, 1954.
No, didn't love that year. No. Okay. Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to say anything about that either. Okay, back to me. Number 9. Oh, boy, this is a good year. Gosh, this actually has to be on your list. I'm realizing it right now because there's some movies that I don't like, but they're still seen as really good that you love, and there's ones that I love. This is My Neighbor Totoro, A Fish Called Wanda, Rain Man, Grave with the Fireflies, Die Hard, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. This is 1988 at number 9.
Absolutely not on my list. I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to put any 80s years on my list. Pew. What I do have on my list in the number 8 slot. This is a little nod towards history. This is the year that movies sort of started becoming movies because they learned how to edit films together and tell stories using edited footage. And that is the year 1903.
Wait, I've lost you. Say it differently. 1903?
1903.
There were no movies then.
There were movies then. That was the first year there were movies. There were movies 8 years before that.
Is that the one with like the little horse riding around? No?
Yeah, it's Great Train Robbery was that year.
All right.
And Life of an American Fireman.
This wasn't a good year. You've just picked it.
It was a magnificent. It was a very important year. We wouldn't have movies if it wasn't for this. I'm
glad it's in the rapid fire round because I would argue with that. But nevertheless, I'm coming in at my number 8, right?
Yes, you are.
Number 8 with my movie that I had to have on here because it's the year that I watched the movie. That's the only reason that Rob and I are still married, because I have to be married to the only person that I was with at the time that I had my best movie experience of all time, watching a multi-generational movie with my great-grandma, my grandma, my mom, myself, and Rob. This is the movie Up that came out in 2009. Which was also a bad year. And I feel bad that I had it.
I am so excited that you don't actually get to walk back what you said about it before, because this is the rapid fire round. So we're going to go straight into my number 7, which brings us to the silent era. We've been in the silent era. It's just 1903. But this is the year of Buster Keaton's Sherlock Jr. And I sort of had to work backwards from, well, I need to make sure I get Sherlock Jr. on my list. And it turns out all of 1924 is really, really damn good, including such films as The Last Laugh.
Okay. I think I did like that one.
You did like that one.
I did like
That's
that
why
one
I named it.
Darn it. What year was that again? Say it one more time.
1924.
1924. Didn't make my list. Not enough backlog for me to have had that on there. But nevertheless, coming in then at my number 7, one of the best years of my life. It was when I was 2, and this is the year 1985. This brought us back to the future. A movie like Ran, which you love, even though it was not that good. The Goonies, The Breakfast Club, Witness. The Kid. Oh my gosh. And Clue, like revolutionizing whodunits. Started in 1985.
Breaks my heart that we can't have a good fight over 1985, but unfortunately, this is still the rapid fire round. And I'm going to end my turn in the rapid fire round with my number 6 best year of all time. Kind of a stand-in for a whole window of time from 1931 to 1934, pre-code Hollywood. It's like, you know what? I got to do one pre-code. I can't do a bunch of pre-codes. I got to limit myself. So I decided what's going to be the tiebreaker out of these 4 wonderful, wonderful years of movies. When they finally figured out how to do sound cinema, well, it's going to be a silent movie, obviously. It's going to be Charlie Chaplin's City Lights is going to break the tie in favor of 1931.
Thought about City Lights. Love it, but can't talk about it. Good pick. Coming in, this is a year that I guess I kind of forgot that people might not like, because for me, it actually had a lot of good stuff in it. For me, this was actually one of the saddest years of my life on a personal perspective. And so it both carried a movie that like inspired me to do better and to get out and to enjoy my life. It also was the saddest movie that I've ever seen and cried on an airplane over it. And a good war movie that helped me decide whether or not I wanted to go to war. It made war seem kind of great. This is 1917, The Father, Soul. This is 2020 at number 6.
Wait, 1917 wasn't 2000. 1917 was 2019.
It came out in January.
It came out in December.
I had to double check.
We were going with 2020. That's cool.
Going with 2020. I love the movie Soul. It redeemed my soul, and I needed it in my life at that time to make my life that feels very insignificant sometimes feel somewhat more significant, and I loved it.
I wish we could discuss this, because if I were counting 2020, it would have been my worst film of all time, worst year of all time. But we can't discuss it. So,
alas,
where are we at?
To our top 5.
All right.
I need to take a little breathe.
I feel like I need a cigarette.
I think I do too. Feeling a little like adrenaline, a little sweat going down. My adrenaline's running. I wish you do this more often. I'm so glad that I could just get that all out there and couldn't even say anything.
I know, right?
Nice.
I just had to take it.
Let's do it again for the top 5.
But now we get to talk a little bit.
All right.
I've already mentioned my honorable mention of the year 2000, where I liked a lot, I hated a lot. But these are movies where I certainly liked more than I hated. So I just touched on the pre-code era of the early 30s, but there's another era where I sort of was like, well, I like the movies sort of as a bundle. And that's from 1942 to 1945. I'm talking about the films of World War II, an era that I think is super interesting and nobody else thinks is as interesting as I do. And I don't care because it's my list. So which World War II year do I want to pluck out and say, this is to me a defining year for the medium? And I kind of used what individual films came out. And I had to break the tie with my single favorite movie, 1942's Casablanca. So that's the year that I'm bringing here for number 5, 1942. The arrival of World War II, I think, really did a lot to kind of rejuvenate the American film industry. That's obviously not the most important thing about World War II. Maybe it's not even an important thing about World War II, but it's what we're talking about here. And I do think that a lot of those early war films are just really interesting time capsules of a completely different social mentality. And some of them are propaganda, some of them are not. But I think there's just something very interesting about the kind of world they're exploring and the world they're defining. In 1942, I think had the biggest number of like heavy hitters for me out of any year that decade. But again, you could really not go wrong with any of 42 through 45, in my estimation.
What was the next best movie that came out in 1942?
The next best movie after Casablanca, probably Orson Welles' The Magnificent Ambersons.
Okay.
But I also am a very big fan of the Disney film Bambi from that year.
Oh yeah. You know what? I've never seen Bambi. So I should check that out.
Are you fucking with me right now?
I would not.
It's Bambi.
I've never seen it. No.
It's Bambi.
I know. I think it's weird too. Now that you're saying
okay.
I didn't realize that I hadn't seen it until like just now when you're saying it. But I went to the theater to see it with my mom and my sister. And my sister, we sat down and right out of the gate, must have been really, really young because I just have such faint memories of this. And my sister was probably 6 or so. And the incident happens with the mom. And my sister was like, whispered. My sister's like so well behaved. She's like, oh, mom, like, mama, what happened to the mom? And my mom's like, shh, like trying to like hush her. And she's like, what happened to the mom? And then she's like, shh, like bring it down. What happened? And she just like flipped out, like in the middle of the
what
theater.
happened is that the mom was probably turned into chops and ground meat that are a little gamey, but very delicious if you just add enough onion and garlic.
My mom explained that to her, and then we had to leave. So we literally made it through that scene, and then my mom had to take us out because my sister.
You rounded the horn. That's more than halfway through.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I guess I've seen some of it. I don't remember it though, and I was
okay.
really little, but I do remember like getting evacuated because my sister freaked out, and
Sure.
Nice little core memory for me there.
Yeah.
But
I do want to, before we leave 1942, I also just want to tip in, great year for cartoons. Like I didn't really make cartoons a tiebreaker, but since I had a year here,
yeah.
Warner Brothers released The Dover Boys at Pimento University. Disney released Der Führer's Face, the Donald Duck anti-Nazi propaganda film. And MGM released Tex Avery's Blitz Wolf. Those are like 3 phenomenal cartoons. And I feel like the fact that they all came out the same year and it's this year, I need to give some props to that.
I think there's probably another list that you could do, which is like, what are the top 5 years of animation? Like, I think you could do
I could do that list.
Yeah. I can't.
Don't give anybody any ideas.
I won't. I can't do that. So, but I think that would be kind of interesting. Anyway, nevertheless, all right, I'm going to jump in at my number 5. This is where it started to get really tough because this is where I was doing the checks and balances. Like, one movie out of the gate that I just love so much, love so dearly. Is it balanced? Are there a lot of other good movies that came out this year? So, I just feel like this pains me a little bit. I don't even know how I feel about it yet. But coming in at number 5 for me is the beautiful year 1999. Is this on your list? Is this on your list?
Consensus pick? No, I think it's a good year. I think it's an overrated year, if I'm being honest.
No. So, and I'll tell you why. I see dead people, Tim. I see dead people. This movie was the most transformative, scary movie. So 1999, how old am I? What is that? Do the math. 6? 16?
16.
16, I think, in my opinion, is the ideal time to see a movie. I think that's the ideal age.
Would you have agreed if I said that your age was 6?
No, I would have said 16. Most of the movies that I love are right around that sweet spot of like 15, 16, 17. And here's why. And I spent a lot of time thinking about this. Like, I still go back to, these are like my favorite times of my life, because I truly still had such a suspension of disbelief going into the movie. Like I just was so transported when I would go into these. I didn't think about the actors. I didn't think about the set or like what was going on behind the scenes. I just was there and I was present. And everything when you're that age is new. And so for me, The Sixth Sense was so like mind blowing. Like I've never been tricked, I guess, in a movie before. And I just remember being like, this is the best feeling. I loved being duped by a movie. But it also brought The Green Mile, Fight Club, which I didn't love, but obviously a classic. The Matrix, if Rob was here, I'm sure 1999 would have been his number
1999
one.
would have been his number one.
Oh, for sure. But it also has Toy Story 2, which I love, American Beauty. It has a lot of really good movies that came out that year. So I kept it at number 5 because it peaks a little bit more after that, but loved this year. Just loved it.
I feel like for me, 1999, some of the bloom has come off the rose for like the agreed upon masterpieces of the year. It's a good year. There's no question it's a good year, but I think it gets a little bit too much attention. It's like the year. But that's fair. I have one of my own canonical years coming up soon enough, so I can't.
Is it?
I can't tell anybody their business. What?
Is it your number 4?
It is not my number 4, tragically. Although I think a lot of people would agree that my number 4 is a good year. This might be the first year I ever actually had a favorite year in movies. And that's because in the year 1964, both Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, and Mary Poppins both came out. And those are 2 movies I've loved forever. And I think it speaks to the overall quality of this year that Dr. Strangelove, which is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen, one of the smartest satires, brilliantly shot, brilliantly made, doesn't make my top 3 of the year. Because I don't think it's as good as any of the Gospel According to St. Matthew or Band of Outsiders or The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, which I've shown you The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. And Mary Poppins, all in the same year.
All in the same year. And more films beyond that. This is not the be all end all. This is the same year as A Hard Day's Night, starring the Beatles, the Richard Lester film. Great year overall. And it's kind of a sweet spot, as I was saying before about the 60s, American cinema is kind of in this free fall in the 60s, but in 64 specifically, American cinema kind of rallies just a little bit and gets one pretty decent year. And while that's going on, European art cinema is just like in its full flower. Like this is when all the heavy hitters are like outworking, is sort of the mid 60s. So again, we have those films like Pasolini's Gospel According to St. Matthew and Godard's Band of Outsiders. So just like a really tremendous top heavy year for quality. And unlike a lot of years, really not a ton that I think is bad. Mm-hmm. Like that's kind of why 64 broke away from the pack a little bit in the mid 60s. I can't really point to anything that's not like good. Some things are weaker in 64 for sure. But it's overall just a very impressive run of movies, and yeah, I have loved it for as long as I've really had the thought in my head. I wonder if you can rank years.
I hate to admit this, but in my many, many hours prepping for this, I was just like, I kept like hitting these little walls where I was just like trying to figure out how to tackle this. And so at one point, I thought about what if I just go like decade by decade. And then like try to be really cool and impress people by like having something from the 50s, something from the 60s, something from the 70s. And so when I did that, it was a massive failure because I couldn't find anything that I would make my list. I had to be true to myself. So I did that. But when I landed in the 60s, 64 was the one that popped up as being sort of the universally beloved year from the 60s. And then I was like, oh, why do they love it? And it's like, oh, Mary Poppins. I'm like, crap, can't use that because it's just Mary Poppins. So
you don't like Mary Poppins?
I mean, I'm fine with Mary Poppins.
You sicko, you sick freak. I haven't seen Bambi and don't like Mary Poppins.
I'm fine with her, but it's like she's not gonna jump off the page like somebody would out of the movie Soul or 1917.
I just want to kind of rattle through a few of the other films from 64 that I think are pretty great besides the ones I've already mentioned.
Yeah.
This is alphabetical because that's what I have in front of me. Americanization of Emily, Peter Watkins' Culloden, Dog Star Man got finished that year. Fistful of Dollars, the first of the Clint Eastwood Man with No Name films. Goldfinger, one of the great Bonds. Hush Hush, Sweet Charlotte. Intentions of Murder by Imamura Shohei. Kwaidan, the phenomenal early Japanese horror movies. Just like a Mothra versus Godzilla, just a laundry list of terrific movies. Mask of the Red Death. Good stuff.
Good ones.
Copy if you like heist movies, and who doesn't like heist movies?
Not on my list. Didn't make mine, but do I have a heist movie in my next one? I think I do. And one that I think people universally like just a tidge more. I'm just going to throw this out there. And I'm trying to remember right now if I'm offended because this was on your bottom list. I'm just trying to...
Well, we're going to find out here in a second, aren't we?
We're going to find out. So, all right, I'm starting to get a little rattled here. All right, so this one, I love this year. And you love this year. There's things about this year that you love.
Again, every year has at least one great movie.
This one has like 28 of them.
Okay. I'm going to count.
This is 28 good ones. What if I told you, oh my gosh, Before Sunrise? Beautiful movie. What if I told you one of the most popular, famous movies of all time where the Mel Gibson's a Native American, I think, or
what?
Something. I don't know.
Are you talking about Braveheart?
Yeah.
He's not a Native American. Holy shit.
He's not? Oh, gosh. I thought he was.
No, it's Scottish.
Oh, man. Hang on.
That would be so incredibly racist.
I haven't seen the movie. So I'm going to edit that out.
I mean, just in general, if Mel Gibson played a Native American, that would be racist. Do you agree?
Oh, okay. I thought you meant I was. And I was like,
No, I'm saying if he played a Native American.
Yeah, no, I agree. But isn't he racist? Okay. He is a racist person.
Yeah, but people would love the movie if he had done that, is what I'm saying.
No, that's fair. I'm going to move on from Braveheart, and I'm going to take you over to Toy Story. The Usual Suspects, Now and Then, Casper, and topping it off, did I say Apollo 13? Oh my gosh, Jumanji. And my favorite thriller of all time, Seven. This brings us to 1995.
I love that you went through that whole thing without actually naming my favorite film of 1995.
Which one is it?
Babe.
Oh, Babe's the worst. The worst.
What is wrong with your head?
Babe's the worst. We've talked about this before. I was telling you how I'm traumatized from that movie because I had this whole germ fixation thing, and my best friend's dad was eating my popcorn with his mouth we went to go see Babe, and he was just licking the surface.
You did tell me this story.
And he did the thing where you stick out your tongue, and then you grab the kernel with your tongue and then flick it into your mouth. All I wanted was that popcorn. And then now it was just infested it just had spit everywhere. Just spit all over the top.
I don't perceive how that's Babe's fault, for the record.
Does Babe die?
I'm not going to tell you. You have to watch Babe.
I can't remember. I think he does.
No, Babe doesn't die.
I thought Babe does die because I remember my friend's dad was also crying through the whole movie too.
Babe lives.
Somebody
Babe
dies.
Triumphs. Babe has a sequel.
Somebody dies because my friend's dad was bald.
Not on screen.
Oh, okay. Is it Babe's mom that dies?
Babe's mom is taken away to be turned into bacon, but it happens off screen.
Oh, yeah. He just was mowing through the popcorn because he was stress eating. So he was just stress eating like crazy and was so upset about that mom.
Babe lives.
Okay. Good. Well, Babe. So you agree. 1995, one of the best years in cinema.
Well, not because of Jumanji and Casper, no.
Different opinion, but it's still a really good year. And it's on your list.
It's a strong year. What's that?
It's on your list because of Babe.
It's not on my list at all.
All right. Well, 1995. That's my number 4.
Okay. So we're to my number 3?
Yes.
So this gets me to, I think canonically there's an answer to the question, what is the best year in the history of movies? I think people the consensus of opinion tends to land on 1939. I'm not going to buck that consensus of opinion. It's a great year. So many good movies. Probably the biggest litany of heavy hitters in the history of the classical studio system in Hollywood. Just great film after great film. You got Stagecoach. You got not War of the Worlds. Wizard of Oz. Jesus Christ, why did I say War of the Worlds? Stagecoach, Wizard of Oz, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Gone with the Wind, if you're the kind of person who doesn't care that it's racist as all hell, which I'm clearly not. Overseas, you've got some real masterpieces from France. You have Le Jour se lève, and you have Rules of the Game, which is one of the best movies ever made. Just an absolute powerhouse of American film. A lot of the rest of the world kind of feeling out that there's a war happening and maybe movie making needs to take a backseat. But that just kind of concentrates all those great American movies. And, again, it's the simple answer because it's sort of everyone has known forever that 1939 was a great year for movies, but it was a great year for movies. So I'm just going to roll with it and say, yeah, 1939, my favorite film that year, probably Rules of the Game, but no end of great choices for best film of that year.
Okay. 1939. All right. And that's your number 3.
That's my number 3.
All right. I'm starting to get into the good stuff here, even better stuff.
I was going to say, I hope you've been at the good stuff.
I have been at the good stuff. I mean, the last couple, I'm just like, gosh, I just want to go watch all of those movies right now. This next one, I don't want to watch all of these movies right now, but they still have to make my list. I'm going to have to watch the movie from this year in the next year of my life because I have so much pressure from my family. So I probably will have to watch it. But this year brought me the most joy and the most heartbreak and the most sadness that I ever have experienced truly in my life. 2020, I said, was bad, but not nearly as bad as 1997 for me. This was the year of our dear Titanic.
Remember how I made you cry on the air just by describing the end of Titanic?
I do remember that. And
one of my proudest moments.
I know. I was like, you know what? I already have cried a few times today. So I was worried that by even bringing this out, I was like, maybe I won't tell him that happened in this year because then we'll get talking about it and I might just randomly cry again. But I did cry for at least 6 months after Titanic was over. Your cat did just walk in front of the screen. He's very cute.
I'm just glad he didn't deactivate my internet.
It's impressive that he didn't because I definitely just saw
he
his
did
butt.
Write the word poo with 14 O's while he was walking.
So cute. I did see his butt. It lingered right on his butt. It's very cute. Yeah, so Titanic, I struggled for years after that. The girls really, really want to watch it. They don't think it's sad. I keep pushing on them that they will be devastated. My oldest cried for 12 hours after A Quiet Place. I'm like, you cried and I'm shaming her. I'm like, you cried in A Quiet Place. If you cried in A Quiet Place, you are not going to make it through Titanic.
If your teenage daughter doesn't cry during Titanic, she's not a teenager yet.
Yes.
She's 12, right?
Yeah.
She's so close to being a teenager. If she doesn't cry through Titanic, there's no hope.
There's no hope.
The Zoomers. There's no hope.
She will, though. She doesn't know. She was like, it's just old people that die. I'm like, it is not.
It is not old people.
That's
it's sexy girl-looking Leonardo DiCaprio.
She has no idea. Yeah, she's probably. I was like, it's kids. It's old people. It's everybody. Everybody dies. I'm trying to shame her into being sad.
Remind her that more people died than survived the Titanic disaster.
Yeah, I'm like, and they freeze to death. I feel like
including all the poor people.
Yeah. I'm like, all the people that had no money died. All of the kids, everyone died. People were drowning. Do you know what it's like to drown? I feel like I keep pushing all of these fears.
Just a reminder, it wasn't even that because they froze to death before they had time to drown.
Yeah. Gosh, their lungs froze. Yeah. It's just, it's the whole thing is just tragic. But in addition to that, it was also my life awakening movie, Good Will Hunting. Gosh, that started my love affair with Matt Damon, which still carries on to this day slightly. He's getting a little bit I don't know.
He's got some dad punch.
He's getting a little bit daddy on me, but that was the movie where I was like, well, I guess I'm going to marry somebody that looks like Matt Damon if possible. And I didn't.
What happened?
I know. It was unfortunate. Married for personality instead. But I loved this. But for you, this is The Fifth Element. Gattaca. I love the movie Gattaca. I think I also saw that with you in one of our early
maybe that sounds right.
And Face Off. Oh my gosh. Men in Black. It's just the list goes on and on. 1997, one of the best years of my life in cinema history.
It feels like, just looking at over your last few years, you perhaps intentionally, perhaps inadvertently discovered the same thing I discovered kind of, which is that the 90s weirdly keep ping-ponging from the odd-numbered years are great, and the even-numbered years were kind of lousy. And that persists.
Yeah, I feel that.
94 is the exception. 94 was a good even-numbered year, but otherwise 96 is not good. 98 is not good. 92 is not good.
Yeah. I feel that as I was going through, and it's weird. It's weird because you think that they would get like some momentum on some of the years, but it's almost like bad year, and then we had to like scrape it back together, and then pull out.
Because one of the things I felt like I was noticing is that good years come in pairs.
Yeah.
Like one year is good, and then the next year is really, really good, and then it kind of trickles off. And that seemed to happen like multiple times throughout history. In the 90s, it was like literally just every other year is great or bad. Yeah. And it was strange. It was very strange.
That trend is going to continue on my list. So
we kind of already know what your number 2 is.
You don't know for sure. It's
I kind of already know what your number 1 is. Then I know one of your remaining titles.
All right, we'll go to your number 2.
We'll go to my number 2. And I will say about my number 2 before I get started, possibly, and we go back and forth on these things. Everybody, what's the best movie of all time? I don't know. I have a few answers. There's at least a possibility that my pick for the 2 best movies ever made ever came out the same year. So that seems like a pretty good starting point, right? For like, maybe that's a really good year. And a lot of other good movies too. They'd figured out a lot, really, really just kind of culminating, sophisticated moment in history. The issue I've actually already touched on, because the year in question is 1928. The year of the year of Passion of Joan of Arc, the year of The Crowd, the year of The Wind, the year of The Docks of New York, just movie after movie that I love. I think are just absolute medium-defining masterpieces. But as I said when I was talking about 1929, sound came. So as good as those late silent movies were, this was really the last year where silent movies were like a thing in the United States. As good as those movies are, and they're the pinnacle of the art, the talkies were just even worse than the talkies in 1929, unwatchable. Like there's a movie from that year called The Lights of New York that is maybe the most boring film I've actually sat through. It's 65 minutes long, and it feels like it's 3 hours long because everybody's talking super slow so the microphones can pick up their sound. So I felt like I could not say that the year that had all those films and all those horrible early sound learning pains, growing pains, I couldn't call that the best year of all time. So I had to settle for number 2, even though, again, the heavy hitters this year, some of the heaviest to ever hit. Steamboat Willie, the great early Mickey Mouse cartoon that basically invents the concept of talking cartoons and like cartoon sound effects, that happens this year. Lonesome by Paul Fejos, which is a film I saw for the first time last year, and I just immediately fell in love with it. So great, towering, phenomenal year, but it does have that sort of skeleton in the closet of all those early talkies are just dreadful, and there's just no salvaging them.
So this is 1920...
1928.
28. All right. I didn't love that year. In cinema.
Have you seen a single film from 1928, Carrie?
That Mickey Mouse talk. That Mickey Mouse.
You have probably seen Steamboat Willie. That's a very good point.
I have seen that, and I thought it was some real garbage. No.
No, you.
I didn't.
Don't lie to me.
It was good, but not something that I would be like, oh my gosh, let me just sit down and binge some 1928s. Like that's not what I would do.
That's the difference between you and I.
I know. I head to my comfort zone, which again is my childhood for most things. But yes, I'm rolling into, again, this is just I'm rolling into pure joy at this point. And coming in at number 2 for me, it's when I forget what his name is. I met Harrison Ford, and everyone thought he had killed somebody, but he hadn't. And he really didn't. He didn't do it. And I knew he didn't do it the whole time, but everybody thought that he did. Could not have loved The Fugitive more. And I also could not have loved Schindler's List more.
Famously fun and watchable movie, Schindler's List.
Hearted Schindler's List. My favorite Halloween movie of all time, Hocus Pocus. My favorite Robin Williams, who's probably in my top 5 favorite actors of all time. Mrs. Doubtfire came out in this year. Basically, I started developing all these kind of like weird voices after watching Mrs. Doubtfire. I attribute that to Mrs. Doubtfire. How would I ever have these weird accents? I don't know. I loved Groundhog Day, and most of all, I loved Jurassic Park. And this is 1993. There, I said it.
This is as we say. I also had that in the high reaches. I believe was my number 10.
Wait, this is your number 10 in
Best.
Yes.
10 best.
Gosh. Now, what's your favorite of that year? What did you say?
I didn't because we were going through
that's right.
those differently.
What's your favorite?
But for me, the films of 93 that really like tease it out as like an absolutely great year. None that you named, tragically. Some of them were on my list. Fugitive was one of the factors for me. Schindler's List was one of the factors for me. But that's also the year that gives us The Piano, the absolutely world-class Jane Campion film. It gives us Three Colors Blue, which is my favorite of the Three Colors trilogy, one of my all-time favorite performances from Juliette Binoche. I do love Groundhog Day.
Jurassic Park, Tim. Jurassic Park.
I don't love Jurassic Park.
You have to love Jurassic Park.
We've discussed Jurassic Park. I don't love Jurassic Park.
I know, but when you saw it the first time, you loved it. No?
I liked it a lot. I've never, ever in my life liked Jurassic Park as much as Jaws, is basically what it comes down to.
So hard to believe. Sorry. But yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Shortcuts, the Altman film, Shortcuts came out this year. So just absolutely a top tier year, even if we don't agree on necessarily the specific things that made it top tier. Oh, the Brown Trousers, the Wallace and Gromit short.
Oh,
It's like one of my favorite
real
short
classic,
cartoons ever made.
Real classic. I'll let it slide because you have the year right. I think the other thing with this is 10 and 11. So we're respectively 10 and 11 at this age or at this year. I think you're starting to get to watch some more fun stuff. Like, I think your parents at this age start to say, like, at least for me, like, I can maybe slip into a PG-13, maybe-ish, if there's not any swears or violence. So I feel like I started to see some better movies right around this time, too. Because Jurassic Park was kind of, I mean, that was pretty intense when it came out. And again, I would have only been 10. And yeah, I saw that and I just remember being like mind blown. And again, still in that suspension of disbelief where I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how they brought dinosaurs back from the dead. You know, like, how did they do this? Like, I did not look at I didn't see any imperfections in the entire thing. And I love the magic of something like that. I think a little bit of it makes me a little bit sad because I've showed it to the girls and I tried to like video like the moment when you see the dinosaurs, and I thought that there was going to be this like this gasp, just like it did for me as a kid. So I'm like watching for their reaction video so I can like keep it in my memory box. And they were like,
I mean, they grew up with CGI.
I know.
And these are not their first CGI dinosaurs.
It's a letdown for me though, because
it was your first CGI dinosaurs. It was my first CGI dinosaurs. They've been seeing CGI dinosaurs since they were 2.
I know. And it's a letdown for me because their reactions were kind of lame. I was like, I'm deleting this video. They were not.
Did you record their reactions to when they watched Schindler's List for the first time though?
Yeah, no tears.
Those would be pretty special.
No tears. They're made of stone. No, I'm never showing them that. But yeah, nevertheless, I'm watching Jurassic Park again. I love it. I'm watching Mrs. Doubtfire. I've seen all of these movies at least 10 plus times, and I love this year of my life.
Have you ever seen Mike Leigh's Naked from 1993, one of his very best films?
No, but is it good?
It's so good.
Is it really, or are you like setting me up for something?
It is really good, and you would hate it so much that I can't even put into words how much you would hate it.
All right. Well, I'll think about it. I'm typing it down right now. I'll think about watching the trailer for it later.
You're not, but that's okay.
I am.
I'll remind you about Naked in the future.
Please do. All right, Tim, to your number one.
My number one. This is basically just, I said good years come in pairs. I said that there were some problems with 1928, which despite having my absolute picks for the all-time best movies, the year as a whole is maybe questionable, much less questionable, and just barely not as good. 1927, the year prior.
Oh my gosh.
Again, late silence. They figured it out. They knew what they were doing. So incredibly many great films, spearheaded by the absolute masterpiece, Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans. This is also the year of the incredible 5-hour Napoleon by Abel Gance in France. It's the year of Fritz Lang's Metropolis in Germany, which basically, it doesn't invent sci-fi cinema, but it's kind of like where sci-fi cinema comes forever thereafter. Frank Borzegi's Seventh Heaven, beautiful melodrama for Hollywood. Again, just a tremendous number of absolutely great films. Are they quite as great as the great films in 28? I don't think they are, but there's the compensating factor is that there's not any of the bad stuff. Like they're just good. There's just so many good films from 27. I'm sure there are bad films if you're out looking for them, but they don't dominate in the same way that they kind of dominate 28 a little bit. That's my pick, 1927. Best year in the history of the cinema.
I don't agree with you. And here's why. There are so many of your most favorite, most beloved movies that you've completely eliminated by picking these movies from the 20s. Like, where is Jaws? When did Jaws come out?
75. Good year. Not as good as this year.
Yeah, Jaws. What about Raiders of the Lost Ark?
81's a terrible year.
But Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Raiders of the Lost Ark is a good year in a good movie in the midst of a terrible year. What
about other movies that you like? What about Passion of Joan of Arc?
That's 28. I just picked it.
Oh, was it? Oh,
that's 28.
I was getting my story together and I missed that it was 28. Never mind. Well, that's a good pick then. You really like that movie.
I do like that movie quite a lot.
That's true. Well, good for you. I think there's other years that are better. And as you know, again, I am a little bit surprised that this one's not on your list, but maybe I'm less surprised after reading your review. But even if you don't like the best movie of all time, there are so many other movies in my number one year. So many. What if I told you, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
That does not move the needle for me.
What? Sorry, my lung hole is opening up right now. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I'm just going to keep saying it. Okay. The Little Mermaid, Tim.
Little Mermaid was, when I was giving my list to my friend from grad school, Little Mermaid was one of her counter arguments. I was like, no, The Little Mermaid's quite good. I agree. Yeah. Every year has good movies.
Yeah, but not only that, it has When Harry Met Sally. I'm having what she's having, revolutionizing the romantic comedy, When Harry Met Sally. This also has Batman, Do the Right Thing, just like you should have by picking 1989, the number one, the year of our Lord, The Last Crusade. This is like a hands down no-brainer for me. 1989.
I knew you'd have this list on your top 10. Counter argument. This is the year, as I said, of Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, and Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. And that is a gruesome trilogy to try and survive in one sitting, is all I'm saying.
You can't count sequels. I'm talking original movies.
I'm talking the movies that got released, and there were a ton of horror sequels, and they were all incredibly bad.
You know when there were a lot of horror sequels that came out that were bad?
Sleepaway Camps that came out in 1989.
You know what came out that was bad? 1928. 1928 came out, and 27 and 29. All of those ones.
29 was bad. I agree. 29 was my worst year of all time.
That's true. Nothing good came out then. See, I'm getting flustered here at the end. This to me was just like, everybody loves this year. And then when I polled the audience, everyone was like, what's the best year of all time? Everybody said 1989. So I feel like I have consensus amongst the audience.
I feel like we're going to test that, but we'll find out.
We are not. We're not going to test our audience top 5 because it was really, really hard mathematically for me to do it. But you know what? I didn't reread. I did find a winner this week, and our winner this week was Copyrighted Name. Let's see if Copyrighted Name has 1989 on their list.
Carrie, did you look for someone who had 1989?
I did not. I always randomize it. I've not even looked at what their years were. So we will find out. It's not looking good. This is not looking good at all. Copyrighted Name, where is 1989? Okay, Copyrighted Name has as their best years 1939.
It's like I said, that's the one to pick if you don't. That's the one to pick. It's 1939.
Jeez. 1940, 1954, 1964, 1968.
Did I have 54 or did you just... No, I had 54 in my top 10.
You had 64. 1976, 1982, 1984, 1988. It's a real bummer.
That was one of the other things that I discovered. Years that end in 4 and 9 are like abnormally likely to be good.
So weird. All right.
It's weird. I don't get it.
Worst. 1929. Is this you? Yep. Is this your list? Did you come in
here? It is not.
Plant?
I don't like 1968 at all. You've never got 68 on my list. Jesus.
All right. 1930, 1943, 1947, 1970, and 1990. 1996. What? That was a good year. Wait, did they say 1998? Hang on, I got to scroll back up to my list.
96 and 98 were both very bad years. Wait. That's what I was saying. Like the odd numbered 90s years were good, and the even numbered ones other than 94 were bad.
Did I have 98 though? No.
No.
Okay, I'm switching those. Sorry, I'm a little stressed right now. 2005, 2011, and 2020. Oh my gosh. Copyright. Where were you with me? Where were you?
They agreed with you on 2005 and 2011.
I guess so. I also have to call out WBTN for the adorable comment on the site, which was, "What an extraordinarily nerdy and granular topic." Yes, I am well prepared. I cracked up. Anyway, copyrighted name. Shoot us an email at contact@alternateending.com to claim your free Amazon movie rental. Tim, we made it.
We made it.
I don't know how we did it.
We made it in under 2 hours. I would have bet real money we were going to take longer than 2 hours to get through this.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of fidgeting. I started getting a little sweaty, a little bit nervous, a little anxious, a little upset about your list. But nevertheless, we did make it through, and I had fun. So thanks for joining us all. And in closing, we want to thank you guys for joining us. Go out to our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, alternateend.com to follow us. And don't forget about Patreon. We'll catch you next time.
Bye, everybody.